What's going on, YouTube? My name is Bancroft. Thank you for tuning in. And today we have another Star Wars matchup. In particular, it is Leia taking on Darth Vader. And Leia's base of choice is Tarkin, while Vader is bringing the energy conversion lab. Yeah, let's get into it. Also, like always, if you guys enjoyed the content, hit those buttons down below. Let me know you're here. And put in the comments down below what you're playing right now when it comes to Star Wars. Yeah, so Leia, which is a really fun leader, and which I actually did play against this opponent when we did this event. Leia on the undeployed side is an action. You can attack with one rebel unit, then you may attack with another rebel unit. Really good for aggro purposes, and I know this player in particular is very aggressive. And then the Vader has an action for one resource. If you played a villainy card this phase, you can deal 1 damage to a unit and 1 damage to a base. And just for clarification on the bases themselves, Tarkin has the deal 3 damage to a non-leader unit. And keep in mind, once you use the epic action on these bases, you cannot use them for the rest of the game. While Energy Conversion Lab has the ability to play a unit that costs 6 or less from your hand, and it gives it ambush for the phase. So we're going to start pretty strong with both players playing a card on phase 1. We have First Legion Stormtrooper, which is normally a 2/3, but can gain +2/+0 and gain Overwhelm when it attacks a damaged unit. While the Leia player did play Rebel Pathfinder, which has Saboteur, so it kind of gets past the Sentinel or Shills, which is kind of nice. Going into phase 2, got a little ahead of myself. So one thing I want to point out, I know the Leia deck itself, every card in their deck has heroism, or the white aspect. I can't remember 100% what it's called top of my head. But we're going in here with the First Legion Snowtrooper, making 2 damage to the opponent's base right now. And we have the layups follow up, which they will turn around for, paying 3 energy for the red 3, which has raid 1, and then also gives each other friendly white aspect unit, which I think it's heroism. I might be wrong on that one. Raid 1 as well, which then makes this Pathfinder. Rebel Pathfinder a 3/1 attacking. Now Vader did play a cell block guard, which just have Sentinel, which, like we said earlier, can get past it, but the Leia player decided to go ahead and just get rid of it, just in case the counter aggro might be there. And that kind of wraps up phase 2. We're going into phase 3 now. I guess for future reference, I could speed. Oh shit! I guess for future reference, I could speed these parts up a little bit. But it is what it is right now. We are in phase 3, and Vader does have the initiative token, and he's kind of debating what to do. He could make another attack with the First Legion, or he could play a card, kind of trying to figure that out right now. Got a couple options from what I can see. Looks like he could do straight up 3 damage. He could possibly play a ship. He can deal 5 damage to one. No, I don't think he has enough to. No, I think he does have enough to play the Force Choke, but instead he does play the Star Viper, which is kind of interesting. When you have the initiative, while you have the initiative, this unit gains Restore 2, which is kind of nice. One attacking kind of helps keeps the base alive. But Leia did counter with not counter, but played General Dodonna, which gives all other friendly rebel units a +1/+1, which makes this red 3 now a 4/4 when attacking, which is kind of nice. And Vader did play a basic tie-in TIE Fighter, just kind of getting those numbers out there. And we have Leia doing 4 damage now to Vader's base. Keep in mind, both these bases are a 25 HP base, so if one player gets more aggressive than the other one, it can be a very quick game. We do have First Legion swinging into Leia's base, kind of putting it at 4 damage, and it is now Leia will take the initiative now from here on out, at least for phase 4. Yeah, phase 4. looking for that one last resource to put in there. It's one of those situations where, like, if you know what to roughly expect, resourcing the wrong card can definitely hurt you in the long run. So Leia has 5 resources now, so Leia could actually deploy if they want to. It just depends on how they want to kind of do this first turn. So Leia is now swinging with, was starting to swing with red 3, but they asked, like, hang on, I meant to say I'm going to use Leia's ability, which will attack with red 3, but then allow him to attack with the other card afterwards, which, keep in mind, would actually do 9 total damage. But it does say 12 right now because I think they forgot that the red 3 does give raid 1 to the General Dodonna, and he just said 8 damage instead. So just kind of want to point out there, make sure we remember that these cards are buffing each other, which is kind of nice. So the question is, how is Vader going to, because during this phase, they kind of clarify, like, you could deploy Leia this turn, right? And the guy was like, yes, I could deploy Leia. And he's like, okay. So he's trying to figure out what is the best route for this turn. Either, prepping for a counter by possibly playing another cell block guard, or even holding onto a card to potentially do damage to Leia. Oh, sorry, that was not a cell block guard. That was actually a Death Star stormtrooper in his hand. And unfortunately, they don't have the initiative, so they can't get the restore 2 off this, which would be really nice. So they are paying 1 for, there it is, the Death Star stormtrooper. Getting on the board, which is a nice 3-1. For this phase, it's not much, and if Leia has a way of kind of just sniping it, it's going to be really bad. But at the same time, if it stays on the board, it's just an extra 3 points of damage, which is kind of good. But this will allow Vader to kind of use their own ability when it comes to kind of pinging an extra point of damage to a unit and then pinging their opponent's base as well. Leia is now deployed, and on the deploy side for Leia, it has raid 1, so Leia's normally a 3-6. This makes when Leia attacks a 4-6, but then Leia will also, when this unit completes an attack, you may attack when they're rebel unit, which is kind of nice. And then we have the Vader player playing Force Choke, which will deal 5 damage to the Leia, and then that Leia player will get the draw, which is kind of an interesting trade out, but it does cost them only 1. Actually, I think that should have cost him 2. No, he did pay 2 for it. Here, the Leia player went ahead and decided to play Heroic Sacrifice, which is a draw 1. An attack of a unit, it gets +2/+0, but then it defeats it. He knew the Vader unit was going to snipe it anyway, so kind of getting out of the way. Now, this is another situation. So Leia, with Leia's raid being a 4-6, plus the 2 would make it a 6-6, plus General Dodonna would make it a 7-7, but Leia would also get the additional raid 1 from the red 3, making it an actual 8 points damage, but the player only called 7 damage on that attack. And here we have the Vader kind of starting to try and take out some of the threat on Leia's board, so that way in the next phase they're kind of in a safer situation. So kind of trading with the Star Viper, getting at least 3 damage onto the red 3, which is currently a 3-4 because of the general card, which is kind of nice. Leia turn around playing Fighters for Freedom, which is Saboteur, gets past Sentinel as well. But when you play a red card, you may deal 1 damage to a base, which is just really good, especially if you're playing just a lot of red cards. We see Vader going for the 1 resource, and I think we're about to see using Vader's action to kind of ping some stuff around. Yeah. So instead of taking out the red 3, instead Vader's going for taking out the General Dodonna with 1 point damage. paying 1 energy for... Sorry, I said energy by accident. 1 resource for a Spec Force soldier, which when this card's played, it will remove a sentinel from a unit, which is kind of nice. Vader is swinging with the First Legion into General, and keep in mind that will get an additional +2, so being 4 damage, which will allow 1 point of damage to kind of carry over. And we're going to have a slight misplay here as well. So when General Dodonna goes away, all the units, all the rebels that gain a +1/+1 would fall off. And keep in mind, Red 3 is only a 3 defense, so Red 3 actually should have already been off the board. And this would have allowed the Vader player to kind of swing in with the TIE Fighter afterwards into the base, kind of putting it at 7 points of damage. And that does wrap up this phase. We're going into the next phase, so kind of drawing 2 cards and figuring out what to put into resource. With Leia having the initiative token, there's quite a few options here. They still have a 3/4 and a 2/2 on board, and they only need to do 5 damage, so they're pretty much there for it already. We just gotta see what the play lines are. In a second, we're gonna see Vader kind of put a resource down. They kind of forgot to do that because the Leia player was asking about like, hey, what resource are we at real quick, making sure that they didn't mess up. And keep in mind, you don't have to put a resource down every phase. It depends on the situation. So right now, Leia's in a really good situation, but if Vader can somehow keep Leia in control for this phase, Vader can turn this game around very easily. And we see Leia paying 3 for a cause I believe in, which will reveal the top 4 cards of the deck. And I do know Leia plays every card in her deck has the white aspect, which means this does naturally 4 points of damage, but because of Fighters for Freedom, it will do an extra 1 point of damage. Unfortunately, it hasn't said 5 points yet. They only said 4 points of damage. But in a second, they will clarify, did you add an extra point of damage to your base for Fighters for Freedom? And the guy's like, oh, yeah, okay, we'll add that point then. Keep in mind, got to mention that beforehand. Some people can be really nitpicky about that stuff, but that does conclude today's game. Leia does take the win over Vader. Thank you for tuning in. Like I said, if you guys enjoyed this, let me know by hitting those buttons down below. Put a comment down there as well. Take care. Bye.